Hey awesome fancy Megashark, and today I'm reacting to Dr. Bob's videos, so let's get to
The
it.
captain and the second mate are too stunned to speak. The deckhand
What
hasn't just
happened?
gone insane, he's become unrecognizable.
Teeth!
Something is burrowing out from his eye
Oh
socket.
my gosh.
Teeth. A cluster of teeth that are growing without stopping, winding out of the space where his eyes should be, like weeds.
What just
To their horror,
happened?
the deckhand reaches into the socket and wrenches out one of the teeth.
Oh! Ouch! That
and
gotta
chews.
hurt.
As his
Ew!
head turns,
Ew!
they catch a glimpse of
Ew!
the side of his head, lined with more of the crooked,
Oh
yellow
my
teeth
gosh.
growing out of his skull.
Oh my
Their
gosh.
roots, no doubt, burrowing into his brain. It looks more like the barnacles on
This
the bottom
is
of
not
the ship
good.
than the side of a human head. The captain knows there's only one thing to do. Their cargo needs to go overboard. She's the
Yeah.
one doing this. On October 19th, 1985, the cargo ship, the SS Mavis, would be sailing en route to the United Kingdom. Within a week, the vessel would be found by SCP Foundation agents. It was shipwrecked off the east coast of England with no sign of any of the crew, or, more importantly, their cargo, SCP-4667. This anomaly has somehow managed to evade Foundation capture in the almost 4 decades since, although what they would uncover from the wreckage of the Mavis would uncover more about this elusive entity. The SS Mavis had been on a course from a port in Russia to the United Kingdom, carrying a number of individuals from Irkutsk within the USSR. Research and evidence gathered by the Foundation indicates that one of these individuals was Yosif Yekaterina, a local dentist from the area. The other was a mute woman, 26 years of age, referred to only as Evidente in partial records recovered from the Mavis. Her surname remains unknown and is believed to have been lost. While at the time of the shipwreck's discovery, the Foundation assumed that this was a case of 2 Soviet defectors fleeing from the USSR during the Cold War, smuggled aboard the cargo ship.
So it was their doing?
That these 2 individuals were far from ordinary civilians.
They are
Had departed
SCPs?
Russia after contacting a colleague of his in Britain, discussing an unusual discovery he had made regarding one of his patients. This patient was Evidente, prompting Yekaterina to bring the girl with him aboard the Mavis to visit his associate in the UK, one Russ Stanford, a man known to the SCP Foundation. At the time, Russ Stanford had garnered some attention from the Foundation.
So he was trying to get her to the Foundation.
GOI 0435, the Dentists Collective of Britain. While they were hardly considered as great of a security risk as the likes of the Chaos Insurgency or GRU Division P, the Dentists Collective noted study of anomalies had become more prevalent under Russ Stanford's leadership, prompting the Foundation to keep watch of their activities. They had started simply as a workers' union for dentists, but for some unknown reason, the Dentists Collective of Britain had pivoted under Stanford towards studying anomalous practices of dentistry and genetic dental
there's a lot of
anomalies in nature. Hence, Russ Stanford's apparent interest in Evidente. In addition to being mute, the Soviet woman had been diagnosed with total
There's
anaplegia,
always a lot
a
about teeth growing where it shouldn't be.
But there was something else about her condition that had prompted Yekaterina to contact Stanford. The Foundation has since determined that Evidente is SCP-4667. Upon hearing about the anomalous dental condition of Yekaterina's patient, Stanford was eager to examine her for himself. He requested that she be relocated to his office in the UK and corresponded with Yekaterina directly in order to arrange for both him and Evidente to be smuggled out of the USSR. They procured the SS Mavis, a British-owned cargo-hauling vessel, to transport the dentist and his anomalous patient by bribing the crew on board. It was also agreed that, in exchange for safe passage to the UK, Yekaterina would offer his services as the ship doctor, should the need arise. With the cargo ship workers agreeing to smuggle the 2 supposed defectors, the Mavis set sail, with Evidente locked in a small room to the side of the vessel's cargo hold. By the time the ship washed up on the shores of the United Kingdom, both Yekaterina and SCP-4667 would have vanished. The rest of the crew weren't so lucky.
They're all
Aboard the
gone.
SS Mavis were Captain Boleslav Kondrat, the chief mate Carlton Tilda, the ship's chief engineer Kenelm Hiram, Wilhelm Kale, the second mate, and deckhand Sebastian Wendell. During the initial transit from the USSR to the UK, Wendell was keeping an eye on Evidente in her room.
And that's when he got...
noting that she seemed to be pacing around inside. Neither had been told why she was being held in the cargo hold room. They had only heard from Yekaterina that she was mute and lacked any teeth. Beyond that, they weren't given a reason from their captain as to why she was aboard. Having been standing watch for a while at this point, Wendell asked Kale to fetch him a chair, only to start coughing lightly as his crewmate departed.
He got
He tried striking up
infected.
conversation with Evidente, asking if she needed anything, even offering her some leftovers from the previous night's supper. Suddenly, Wendell found his cough becoming more violent and raised a hand to cover his mouth. He felt something solid hit the center of his palm, caught it reflexively, only to feel sick to his stomach the second he opened his fingers to see it. It was a human tooth. An abnormally elongated human tooth.
Oh my gosh, that's not a normal human tooth.
Wendell thanked her, then casually put the tooth back in his mouth, loudly crunching it before eventually swallowing it.
Oh, yeah.
The anomalous dental patient that he was good for now, he quickly coughed up another unusually long tooth. Well, if you insist. Elsewhere on the ship, over at the bridge, Captain Conrad had been manning the wheel and steering the Mavis, while absent-mindedly humming to himself. As he consulted one of his maps, he suddenly started to experience a cramp in his hand, assuming it to be a flare-up of his carpal tunnel syndrome. To his shock, as he reached to pick up a pencil, a soft crack caused him to jolt his hand.
Oh my gosh.
The fingernail on his left index finger had cracked and was bulging outwards.
Oh, there'll be a tooth.
Tilda entered the bridge in time to man the helm while the captain left to speak with their impromptu doctor, Yekaterina, about his unusual injury. Finding Captain Conrad entering his quarters, Yekaterina turned away from writing in his journal and asked if everything was all right with his patient. Conrad assured the dentist that the deckhand Wendell was keeping a close eye on her before he presented his damaged fingernail to Yekaterina. Being the closest thing to the ship's doctor on board, Yekaterina retrieved a pair of pliers from his bag and started to remove splinters of Conrad's
Oh my gosh.
The captain winced, keeping his hand pressed flat on the nightstand, wondering if it wouldn't be less hassle to just chop the whole finger off. But the more fragments Yekaterina chipped away revealed something underneath the man's fingernail. Another long, human tooth. Yekaterina urged the confused Conrad to keep still while he started pulling the tooth out of his finger. The captain howled obscenities as pain ran down his hand.
My gosh.
The tooth cracked out of his finger, which started to bleed heavily. Yekaterina calmly placed the tooth on the nightstand and retrieved something to sterilize the wound and bandages to cover it. Gagging, barely able to get words out, Conrad asked what could possibly cause a growth like that to appear. The dentist's answer was as simple as it was telling. Girl is losing control. He explained as best as he could that he'd cared for Evidente for some time, and she had what he considered to be a gift. Yekaterina was certain that she was in control of this anomalous ability, but it seemed that was no longer the case. As he casually produced a measuring tape from his satchel and measured the tooth, Captain Conrad pressed him for more information, only to be interrupted by Hiram, the chief engineer. He had come to warn the captain that the Mavis was going too fast and that the engine would give out if they kept on at their current speed. Frustrated, Conrad chalked it up to Tilda, expecting that the chief mate was slacking. He told Hiram to get Tilda out of his smoke break and back to the ship's wheel. Returning to his conversation with Yekaterina, Captain Conrad demanded to know more about what Evidente was doing to him. The dentist explained that he wasn't entirely sure, but that his colleague at the Dentists Collective of Britain, Russ Stanford, knew more. All Yekaterina really understood was that Evidente could cause teeth to grow. Beyond that, little else. He didn't even have a name for the anomalous condition. The tooth he'd pulled from Conrad's finger was 32 millimeters long.
Oh my gosh,
longer than the average incisor.
That's
and it was
big.
Still growing. While Conrad departed Yekaterina's quarters, over at the helm of the ship, Tilda hadn't stepped away from the wheel at all. He just couldn't move. Following the captain's orders, Hiram headed over to the bridge to get the chief mate to slow the cargo vessel down, only to freeze on the spot the moment he saw Tilda. He backed away, horrified,
oh my gosh,
to start feeling lightheaded. With a heavy thump, Hiram dropped to the floor, fainted.
Oh my
Tilda
goodness.
wasn't moving. He couldn't move. His body was covered in copious amounts
growing
growing out of his arms, legs, hands, splitting through fingernails, and breaking the skin of his knuckles as more of them came bursting out. The teeth surrounded his entire body and had intertwined with the ship's controls, causing the Mavis's gradual acceleration. While Hiram lay unconscious on the floor, there then came the sound of cracking. A puddle of blood started to form underneath him.
Oh my gosh.
Back in the cargo hold, something equally strange was happening to Wendell. He was chewing, but no crunching could be heard. His voice was noticeably slurred as he asked Evidente if she had any more for him. When Cale returned with a chair, Wendell turned to him and asked if he had any teeth to spare. Before the terrified Cale could properly process what he was seeing, Wendell reached into his eye socket with two of his fingers and pulled out another elongated tooth before he put it in his mouth and started chewing. Conrad entered just in time to see this unfold, the captain and his second mate baffled and horrified by what was going on.
Yeah.
Wendell jeered that eating his own teeth was better than Cale's cooking, before insisting he was still watching their anomalous cargo. Captain Conrad explained as best he could that Evidente was somehow messing with Wendell, and that he wasn't supposed to have teeth growing out of his eyes. Without warning, Wendell collapsed, gripping his gut in agony. The tooth fragments in his stomach were still growing and had elongated so much that they were able to puncture through his abdomen.
Oh, ow, that gotta hurt really much. Ow, ow, ow.
Grabbed the ship's keys from Wendell.
That, oh my gosh.
Overboard. Cale brought the keys up to the door, only for another tooth to suddenly
oh my gosh.
his index finger.
Oh my gosh, oh my gosh.
Causing him to drop the keys in pain.
Oh.
As they clattered to the floor, Evidente reached under the door and grabbed them. But as Conrad was quick to taunt her, she couldn't unlock the door from inside the room. Within the cargo hold side room, Evidente threw the keys in frustration. She stared at the sealed door, and as she did, screams could be heard from the other side. Conrad and Cale were themselves becoming masses of elongated teeth, screaming in agony before going silent after a few short seconds.
Oh my goodness.
Above her, Evidente noticed the ceiling was convex and stepped into the corner of the room.
Oh my god.
Underneath the bulge.
Girl, move out the way.
Started to crack under the strain of
Move out the way, girl.
Only to break and allow a mass of teeth to fall through the resultant hole. It was, or it had been, Hiram's body, now riddled with more of the elongated teeth growing from his back and shoulders. The roof above the side room collapsed, allowing Evidente to escape. A rising pillar of growing teeth carried her up through the hole in the ceiling, up to the Mavis's bridge. Stepping off the platform she had grown out of Hiram, Evidente was at the ship's helm. Low fuel lights were blinking as the calcified statue of Tilda's body was stuck at the ship's wheel. Calmly and silently, Evidente left the bridge through a side door that took her down onto the main deck of the cargo ship. There, the dentist who'd brought her aboard was readying a lifeboat. Seeing her suddenly approaching, Yekaterina wasn't at all startled. Instead, he spoke to Evidente in Russian, telling her, "You know I care about you and your craft. Unlike these others, I will await your reclamation. I hope my service was satisfactory." After staring at him for a few moments, Evidente left to return to the bridge, leaving Yekaterina free to lead the Mavis aboard the lifeboat. When the ship would eventually wash up on the coast of the United Kingdom, there was no one still alive on board. Or rather, there wouldn't be by the time the Foundation arrived. But they weren't the one to get to the Mavis first. Having been expecting the cargo ship's arrival, members of GOI 0435, including the leader of the Dentists Collective of Britain, Russ Stanford, were quick to arrive at the site of the shipwreck. It was October 21st, 1985. The arrival of the Dentists Collective was recorded by one of their members carrying a video camera. Stanford claimed that she had spoken to him the night before, that she wanted the group to see something. He instructed the cameraman to keep the film steady, as there would be others who would want to see. Approaching the Mavis's wreckage, Stanford quickly recognized it as the cargo ship that Yekaterina had bribed. He called out to see if there was anyone else still alive on board. As he did, Evidente emerged on the deck of the Mavis. Stanford, with the majority of the rest of the group, called out to her and claimed that they had studied her craft. They called Evidente's anomalous condition her divine work and said that they had heard her cries in the teeth of their dental patients. "Not all of us forsake your gift. Not all. Evidente smirked in response, interrupting Stanford as a pair of wings began to unfurl from her back.
Wow.
Made entirely of elongated teeth. Although the cameraman filming this happening couldn't get a clear enough shot of what was holding them together. Stanford and the rest of the dentists collectively
that they're teeth.
Evidente. Their leader then addressed the anomalous winged woman. Go, make your gift clear, Evidente. Make it clear.
Oh my goodness.
At this point,
crazy.
As the recording, Evidente used her teeth wings to lift herself up into the air before flying towards the mainland. Once she exited the frame of the camera lens,
crazy.
The members of the dentists collective started slowly walking in the same direction that she flew off in. The cameraman dropped his camera, seemingly not noticing, as he joined the others silently walking into the distance. The camera was still rolling when the Foundation agents arrived on the scene. Multiple objects of significance were recovered from the scene of the SS Mavis wreck, including the bodies of its crew, a photo, and the camera, with some of its recordings still intact. The photograph, presumed to have been dropped by one of the dentists, was a black and white image of one of their group meetings, dated several years earlier, showing the collective's members sitting around a table. Written on the back was the phrase, "Dentists Meeting 1981. We grow stronger every day."
Whoa.
Among the figures in the photo, Russ Stanford could be seen standing at the far side of the table. Following the recovery of the SS Mavis's shipwreck, the SCP Foundation has been unable to ascertain the whereabouts of GOI 0435. Researchers have postulated that this was more than a group of practitioners with an interest in anomalous dentistry.
I think they're cults.
From the evidence gathered at the scene, they appear to have been some kind of cult of unknown origin or intentions. According to records obtained by the Foundation, not one of the group's members returned to regular practice following this event, nor have any been reported as deceased. The search for further information regarding the dentists' collective remains ongoing. SCP-4667 also still remains at large. Despite knowing of her existence, SCP-4667 has never been in Foundation custody.
Wow.
However, details about her anomalous condition have been ascertained from the footage recovered at the wreck of the SS Mavis, as well as the bodies of its crew. Whether possessing their deciduous milk teeth or their full-grown succedaneous adult teeth, anyone in close enough proximity to SCP-4667 will begin to grow elongated teeth throughout their body.
Bad.
The range of this anomalous dental transfiguration is thought to have an area of effect between approximately 70 to 100 meters. A person being affected by SCP-4667 will find their teeth start to slowly growing downwards into the gum line. That's really terrible. This is also known to affect other mammals, as a colony of European bats were found aboard the Mavis, having also succumbed to the effects of SCP-4667. More new teeth will begin to sporadically grow directly from the subject's skeletal system, starting at the jawbone and then downwards, with more growths beginning lower down. These newly developed teeth will also start to rapidly
that's really terrible.
To puncture vital organs or break through from underneath the subject's skin. This occurs at a sporadic rate, and some Foundation researchers have speculated, based on security footage recovered from aboard the Mavis, that SCP-4667 is able to at least partially control the rate at which these new teeth grow. However, until she is able to be captured, this remains unconfirmed. What is known for certain is that this anomalous overgrowth of teeth will continue even after an affected person is dead.
Yeah, it would grow and grow.
Is having their internal organs pierced by tooth growth. Most commonly, the roots of the teeth in the person's upper jaw elongate until they
that's worse. Oh my gosh.
Perhaps strangest of all, however, was what the Foundation discovered had happened to the bodies of the Mavis crew after they had been killed.
What is it?
Cadavers of those affected by SCP-4667 are no longer in close proximity to her. The teeth growths will start collectively bending into large, intricate structures. The teeth
my gosh.
One of the crew formed a feminine, winged humanoid, thought by some to be a depiction of Evidente herself. The bat colony affected by SCP-4667 grew to depict multiple small humanoid figures, appearing to be malnourished and in states of anguish. Out of one of the other crew members grew a sculpture of the winged figure with its arms extended over multiple humanoids. From one of the other bodies, a depiction of these humanoid figures and holding what looked to be food. The next of these tooth growth sculptures appear to show multiple aggressive human figures, with the winged entity flying away from them. The remaining one, noticeably larger and better constructed than the other statues, showed the same winged feminine humanoid, crying. Foundation experts are still struggling to interpret the meaning of these sculptures or how exactly they are formed from a body affected by SCP-4667. Researchers are hopeful that the eventual recovery of SCP-4667
I hope that they get her before.
She is currently thought to be located somewhere between either the North Sea or the Baltic Sea.
Before
in coastal and ocean fauna
the poor fish.
In order to determine her exact whereabouts. Check out the Dr. Bob Patreon
Yeah,
and become a
that's
junior researcher
bad.
today. Now go and watch another entry from the files of Dr. Bob, like SCP-478, Tooth Fairies.
I saw that one. Now this other SCP, it is Food Revenge one.
You're enjoying a slice of pizza at the food court.
Yeah.
When all of a sudden, the room warps around you. The plastic tables and chairs become a
Oh my
box,
goodness.
wooden tables,
What is happening?
You look down at your hands. They look different.
Oh my gosh.
Soft and fluffy and sugary. A gavel bangs.
Are you
and
turning
look up
into
to see
food?
a judge waiting for your statement. Welcome to the court. The food court. It's a rainy day in Newcastle, Australia, and on rainy days...
Oh, Australia, that's where I am. I'm in Australia.
Some people don't enjoy malls. The crowds, the noise, the smorgasbord of sights, sounds, and smells. But not Josh. He loves a bit of commerce with his leisure time, to seek refuge beneath the warm glow of the fluorescent lights. First, he'll dip into the bookstore and flip through a few new releases, maybe check out the comic books. Next, check out the surf shop and consider taking up surfing. He hasn't tried it before,
cool.
but it's nice to consider the possibility between glossy advertisements and surf and dive equipment. If there's anything interesting showing at the cinema, he'll pop in for a matinee. There's just so much to do at the mall for a young man with some time to kill and a desire to stay out of the rain. Of course, all that shopping works up an appetite. And after he finishes his movie, Josh finds himself in the mood for something a bit more substantial than popcorn.
Yeah,
Good thing
something
this mall, like every
yummy.
mall, has a well-stocked food court.
Yeah, I love food courts.
As Josh makes his way to the food court, he becomes acutely aware that the mall is a lot emptier than he's used to. He hasn't been to this particular mall before, to be fair, but generally a rainy
Oh
day brings
no,
pretty
that's
crowds
a
in, eager to avoid
SCP,
the
I
storm.
can tell.
But it's nothing to worry about. More for him to enjoy. The stores are still open and well-staffed. It doesn't matter much to him that there don't seem to be many shoppers. If anything, he knows that the food court won't have any long lines. His prediction turns out to be correct. And when he reaches the food court, Josh finds it nearly deserted, except for the employees manning
food
each of the
courts
counters.
and
He
malls
shrugs and steps up to
in
the
food
counter beneath
courts,
the giant
they
picture of the
always have
pizza.
a lot of
Yes, the good
people.
old-fashioned shopping mall couldn't keep up with online shopping forever. But at least there are still some people, like Josh, keeping the old ways alive. He orders a pizza and a soda from a nervous, sweaty teenage cashier.
I love
and carries his meal
pizza.
over to one of the many empty plastic tables and chairs. First, a big sip of soda. Walking through the mall really makes a guy thirsty. Now, time
What
to feast.
pizza?
Nothing like a good bit of food court pizza after working up an appetite.
Looks
Josh
like
takes a
it's
big, ravenous
pepperoni
bite
and
begins to chew.
mushroom.
It's good. Better than pizza at the mall usually is, he has to admit. But something doesn't feel right.
Uh-oh.
His throat feels strange as he
Oh
swallows.
no.
His eyes feel bleary and heavy all of a
Oh
sudden.
no.
He blinks and peers around the room
That's
to
not
find it
good.
changing. The walls close in, the room shrinking.
Oh
around him.
no,
The
that's
furniture
not good.
reconfigures itself,
That is
forming
definitely
desks,
not
rows of
good.
chairs, box seats off to the
Oh
side,
no.
a judge's bench. Josh has watched plenty of legal dramas, more than enough to recognize this layout when he sees it. He's in a
Oh
courtroom.
no.
But how? And why? But that question is soon replaced with new questions as he sees a loaf of bread wobbling across
What
the
the
floor.
what?
There's no other way to describe it. The bread is walking in his direction. It stops right in front of him, and much to his shock, it begins to speak.
Oh my
But
gosh.
before we go any further, I have a question for you.
What's that?
Have you been feeling like something's just not right? Is there something holding you back from achieving your happiness or your goals?
I'm
You
fine.
don't need a clinical mental health issue to benefit from therapy. Sometimes the daily challenges of life are enough. Therapy gives you tools to approach life differently, and it's a sign of strength to seek help when you need it.
I'm
That's why
okay,
I'm excited
Dr.
to
Bob.
introduce today's sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp is on a mission to make therapy easier by making it more affordable and more accessible. And this is an important mission because finding a therapist can be really hard, especially when you're limited to the options in your area. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online, it's remote, and by filling out a questionnaire, BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist in as little as a couple days. If your therapist doesn't feel like the right fit, you can switch anytime at no additional cost. BetterHelp makes it easy. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5-star rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. If you're struggling, consider therapy with BetterHelp. Check the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/drbob to get 10% off your first month. Thank you again, BetterHelp, for supporting this channel. And now, back to the
I like Dr. Bob's t-shirt with the symbol CP on it.
For a moment, Josh is too stunned to respond. Eventually, he summons the words, or he tries to. What he thinks and what comes out of his mouth are entirely different. He wants to ask what's going on, but what comes out is, "Why do you think you can boss me around, you big loaf?"
Oh my gosh!
He stands up and scans the newly formed courtroom. It isn't just him and the magical talking bread loaf in here. You can see a bucket of popcorn sitting in the jury box next to a gummy bear, a head of lettuce watching from one of the chairs behind.
Sorry, it just
A
shocked
chicken
me.
drumstick sits at a typewriter, acting as the court reporter. Josh realizes then that in this nonsense court, this loaf must be the bailiff, or the bail loaf, as it were. Huh, the bailiff scoffs. I'm the yeast of your worries. He slaps Josh on the back with a hand a bread loaf shouldn't have and leads him over to a chair at the defendant's table. So you'll say it again. Sit down. Even in his shock and confusion, Josh can feel himself growing irritated at the food-based puns. What's going on here? Did someone put something in his pizza? Or did he fall asleep in the food court and start having some kind of bizarre food-induced nightmare?
Oh no.
It's all just too weird.
This is bad.
It's just the same. Fine, but stop doing that. You're starting to get on my nerves. Wait, what? Again, he can't control the words coming from his mouth. They
Yeah,
tumble out,
poor
seemingly of their own
thing.
accord.
Poor
He's
him.
never been much for puns before, but now he just can't seem to stop. The
Poor
weirdest day
him.
ever is only getting weirder as a big
I
red
feel
heirloom
sorry
tomato
for him.
sits down in the chair next to him. Don't worry about that. That just kind of happens here. You'll get couscous to it, the tomato says. The tomato lawyer, maybe? Tomaterney? Who are you, Vanilla Extractly? Josh asks. He's never spoken to a tomato before, much less one with a southern accent. Oh, right. Nice to meet you. I've been assigned as your public defense arugula lawyer. So Josh was right. This is his tomaterney. Why does he have one in the first place? What crime could he possibly be on trial for, especially in such a strange court? But before he can ask, the bail loaf bellows an announcement.
I feel sorry for him.
All rise for the Honorable Fudge Hershey. Oh, for the love of chips.
Yeah.
But he stands, unwilling to find out what might happen if he gets himself in even more trouble in this food-based land. Here comes the judge, or the fudge. Sure enough, the door opens, and in strides the stateliest piece of fudge that Josh has ever seen, clad in a judge's robes. It sits at the judge's bench, and without any arms, picks up the gavel and pounds it on the wooden surface, bringing the room to attention. The piece of fudge has no eyes, but Josh can feel the fudge looking right at him just the same. It speaks. Now
my
let us get
goodness.
this underway. Defendant, what is your name? Defendant, that's him. In a moment of pure panic, Josh salutes the fudge, then speaks. I am Josh? The fudge nods. Josh, you stand before a jury of your pears, and by that I mean pears you've eaten throughout your life, to defend the fact that you have killed and eaten so many of us before.
But they
Let's start with your
were
opening
normal.
arguments.
They're not you.
What? Is this for real?
They're not
Josh pinches his
you.
arm hard. Ouch, it hurts. So, not a dream.
The
then.
ones that
Maybe a
he
hallucination.
eaten
It feels so real.
are not
When
alive.
he pinched his arm, something didn't feel right. In all of the confusion, Josh has been looking at the room and the food in it, but he hasn't taken a moment to look down at himself. When he does, he sees that his clothes, his skin, his hair, and no doubt his blood, organs, and all the rest are made from thick cake frosting in a variety of colors. He's not just among the food, he's become food too. But his transformed state doesn't seem to have won him any points with the fudge, or the jury of the pears, and various other foods.
Oh my
How is he
gosh.
supposed to defend the act
Oh
of
no.
eating food to a room full of food?
Yeah, how you gonna
He
say?
clears his throat and begins. I know this is hard to hear.
Yeah, this is gonna be so embarrassing. Oh my goodness.
I only ever eye any of you to stay alive. He meant to say alive, but that'll have to do. Someone on the other side of the room snorts derisively in response. Josh turns his head and sees something standing at the plaintiff's table. It looks like a big piece of cured meat, salami or prosciutto perhaps. What's the pun here? Oh, it washes over him like a bucket of cold water dumped on his head. The prosecutor. The procharcuterie. Today, the procharcuterie begins. I will convince you that Josh not only ate many of us, but ate us with delicious intent. Gasps from the jury box. Then a moment of tense silence hangs over the room, until the procharcuterie speaks again. I'd like to call a witness to the stand. Josh can't help but look as he hears movement at the far side of the room. It's an egg, shell and all, rolling up to the witness stand. His stomach drops.
Oh my
He
gosh.
was always taught that breakfast was the most important meal of the day.
Yeah.
And he can't even begin to count how many eggs have been sacrificed in the name of breaking that all-important fast. The egg stills on the stand, and the procharcuterie begins his line of questioning. Hello, Miss Sunny Side Up. You all know Sunny as the hard-boiled cop who keeps our streets safe. But did you know Miss Side Up was brutally attacked and eaten by Josh a while back when... Well, I'm gonna let Sunny tell you about it. Josh's eyes widen at the words. If he'd known the egg was a cop, he never would have eaten it. But now he supposes it's too late. He'll have to hear what the egg has to say.
Oh my gosh.
The egg's voice is tearful, wavering as she speaks. My memory of the event might be a little scrambled since it was pretty traumatic, but I'll tell the story as well as I can remember. It was early in the morning when that devil man kidnapped me and my fellow eggs. We could tell he was carting us off to his murder room.
Oh my goodness.
Murder room? Does she mean a kitchen? Come on, he's not Hannibal Lecter here. He's just a guy who needs to eat. Though
yeah,
he supposes Hannibal Lecter
but hard to say. They were not alive.
Tried to hash things out with him, but he wouldn't listen. Things started to heat up. Literally, he threw us into a pan on top
They
of
were
some
not
bread.
alive.
That's what I do. I was French toast. Sympathetic murmurs ripple through the jury box.
They were
as
not
the
alive.
prosecutor turns to face them again. As you can see, Josh didn't use Miss Side Up for sustenance. Josh, did you kill Sunny with the only intent being penutrition? Or did you do it to have a good meal? Josh is a deer in headlights, unsure of what to say. Since when is having a meal, a succulent breakfast meal, a crime?
It's not a
Before he can
crime.
answer, the fudge bangs his gavel. I'll ask you not to question the defendant at this time. The Tomei attorney stands up again and addresses the fudge. I would now like to call a witness to the stand. Who could it possibly be calling to the stand in his defense? He quickly gets an answer when a bean bounces across the floor and all the way to the witness stand. The Tomei attorney addresses the bean. Now, Mr. Bean, how was your experience with Josh? The bean nods. Let me tell you to you straight. There's nothing mean about Josh. I think he happily olived with the fact he killed and ate us. It wasn't until he opened our can and poured us into a bowl that had so much room for all of us. I realized Josh cared about our well-being too. Now, I don't speak for everyone here, but I believe Josh is a good guy. He had been consuming us solely for nutritional value. Josh lets out a sigh of relief. At least some of those words are on his side. The Tomei attorney turns to the jury, addressing them with a bit of folksy heirloom charm. Purely for nutritional value. Now, that doesn't sound like a man who revels in food's grain for his own Turkish delight. Josh is a man who only eats us for his own survival. You need some more convincing? There can't be any better evidence than that. But the fudge is not so easily swayed.
Oh boy.
Experience does not speak for all foods. I rule in favor of the people. The defendant is a man who revels in causing food grain and a perpetrator of crimes against humankind. Call in the execucumber. What? Josh's stomach drops.
Oh my gosh.
Even had a chance to deliberate.
Oh my gosh.
Already calling
Oh
the
no.
execucumber. It's not fair. He knows it likely won't help, but he has to speak up. Come on, man. I never realized you were all a chive. I want to call for an appeal. But the Fudge is dispassionate and gives him no response. That's it. He's got to make a run for it. He stands up and tries to sprint toward the exit.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
The back of his frosting shirt. The bay loaf is a lot stronger than he looks. Must be a whole wheat bread, Josh thinks.
Oh my goodness. Oh no.
Forces him back into his chair, shouting,
Please.
"Hey, remain in your seat." The tomaturney bangs his fist on the table, crying out for justice.
The food he eats were not alive.
Your Honor, what are you? That's right, Fudge. You're way too biased to be a fudge. You're specifically crafted to be a treat for humans. It's not Josh's fault his society has made it so okay to eat us. He should not be blamed for humanity's shortcomings. But there is no corn in the courtroom.
Oh my goodness.
So the pleas fall on deaf ears. The eyes of the potatoes and Josh watch as the Fudge bangs his gavel again. This is spaghetting out of hand. I take my rulings very seriously. You cumin in my courtroom and slander my name like this, you're out of line. Bayloaf, escort him out. The Bayloaf grabs hold of the tomaturney and
oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
Fun carotting in prison, he quips. The tomaturney shouts, "You cannot silence us! This is tyranny!" But no one stops the Bayloaf from removing him from the court. Now it's just Josh alone in a room with food that wants him dead. No one left to argue for his innocence or for a stay of execution.
Oh my goodness!
The back of the room creaks open, and in walks an enormous cucumber, bigger than any cucumber Josh has ever seen.
My
it's taller
gosh!
than him by at least 2 feet, dressed in black robes and a hood. It bounces toward him slowly, menacingly.
Sorry, sir.
You don't have to do this, Josh begs. Cress, I do.
Please,
the Fudge says somberly.
Please.
Should
Please.
he make a run for it again? He won't get far.
Not enough.
Decides
Please.
to chase after him. No, better to face his demise with some shred of dignity. May God have mercy on your soul, the Fudge remarks. The execucumber reaches Josh, and much to his shock and horror, it opens its mouth.
No.
Cucumbers shouldn't
No.
have mouths,
No.
but none of what's
No.
happened today should have.
No.
The
No.
mouth opens wide,
No.
impossibly
No.
wide,
No.
and all it
No.
is Josh whole. Just as he has lived a life devouring food, now the food is devouring him. He screams once before the sound is muffled and the room goes silent.
Oh my
Fudge bangs his
gosh!
gavel one more time. Food court is dismissed. One by one, the members of the jury file out, and the room is empty. From the perspective of the food court employees, no time at all has passed. A man bought a pizza, sat down to eat it, and blipped out of existence. It's a bit weird, but it happens all the time here. There's a reason why they've all been told to take their lunch breaks in the parking lot. No one has ever bothered to question it. Or if they did, they disappeared too. Several months later, the SCP Foundation begins to connect a series of unsolved missing persons cases to this particular mall. Upon reviewing security footage from the building, they uncover the footage of Josh's trial and realize exactly what has happened to all of these missing people.
Yeah.
More likely than not, they too were found guilty and sentenced to the same fate. The mall is quickly closed off from the public, and the food court is given the official designation SCP-5847. SCP-5847 is the food court of the Rhodes Plaza Mall in Newcastle, Australia. The anomalous effects of this location are twofold. First, whenever a subject consumes food inside of SCP-5847, the location will transform into a courtroom, also known as SCP-5847-1. This courtroom is filled with SCP-5847-2, or sapient, animate foods. These foods resemble their non-anomalous counterparts in appearance, but are able to perceive, vocalize, and locomote. Research into how these foods are able to do this is currently ongoing.
Yeah, it's very hard.
It has been proposed that the instances of SCP-5847-2 are all foods that the subject has eaten throughout their life up to that point, particularly their favorite foods. Once someone is inside of SCP-5847-1, they will transform into a perfectly rendered facsimile of their original appearance, created from what appears to be thick cake icing. There, in front of a jury of their previous meals, the subject must defend the fact that they eat and have eaten food to a judge that appears to be made from a large piece of sugar candy. Then, they will either be found not guilty and free to go, at which point the room transforms back into a food court and the subject returns to human form, or they will be found guilty
and get
you know how that
eaten.
goes.
Yep.
It appears that these sentient food beings are strict adherents to the death penalty, at least when it comes to crimes against humankind. The secondary anomalous effect, which may go unnoticed at first amidst the more obviously strange happenings, is that anyone inside of the courtroom is subject to a mimetic effect that causes them to unintentionally replace words they say with the names of various foods. They are, without their knowledge or prior consent, forced to make various food-based puns, no matter how much of a stretch those puns might be. The Rhodes Plaza Mall has been bought and repurposed into Foundation Site 86. There are 2 guards stationed at each entrance to the facility, and no food may be brought into SCP-5847 under any circumstances. If it's time for your lunch break, you'd better take it outside. Otherwise, you might find yourself taking the stand. The taco stand, that is. Check out the Dr. Bob Patreon and become a junior researcher
better
today.
to eat
now,
outside.
Entry from the files of Dr. Bob, like SCP-2789, evil fast food, self-replicating.
I already watched that one. Okay, awesome fans, that'll be it for now. Don't forget to subscribe and comment down below and hit that like button. Have a nice day, awesome fans. Bye.